It took a natural path with being on screen where I just hit the ceiling of how much control I could have over my own destiny. So I was always limited by someone who would hire me to do. So the natural evolution into producing meant I was creating my own work and therefore creating my own opportunities. So it was really a much more entrepreneurial path. And so that felt very natural. And once I started dipping my feet into that area, that's when I really things opened up, because it's not just being a craftsperson, it's actually you can create and collaborate and innovate. And so that's really when things lifted off for me.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Ways to Wealth. Today I am joined by Tom Hern. Thanks for coming on.
Awesome to be here, bro.
Yeah, super excited to chat and find out more about your kind of journey.
Yep.
And how you've, navigated the mixture of art and kind of entrepreneurship into your kind of life's work. But why don't you start off by giving us the TLDR on who you are and how you got here?
Yeah, awesome, man. Well, yeah, I've spent a large part of my life working in the screen industry. I actually started off as a junior reporter for TVNZ when I was 13. That's how I entered the industry. I got the job out of an ad in the paper. Went in and shook the dude's hand and said, "I'm the man for the job." And he gave it to me flat out. Yeah, so I sort of started off as a reporter, moved into acting, and then at a certain point into producing. But I left school when I, around my 15th birthday, and entered the industry full time. And so I'm 40 now, so you do the maths on that. Yeah, I moved into producing, then founded my own screen business. And that was back in 2010, my first kind of serious company. And since then, I've been trading internationally and locally, primarily producing series and feature films, both for local and international. And then more recently, I've evolved into writing and directing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And do you feel like that's like the natural evolution? Do you feel like you've taken like the ultimate apprenticeship?
Really? In a way, it's been a pretty special journey, man, because I've got to see and experience lots of things that people, don't get to. I think it took a natural path with being on screen where I just hit the ceiling of how much control I could have over my own destiny. So I was always limited by what someone who would hire me to do. So the natural evolution into producing meant I was creating my own work and therefore creating my own opportunities. So it was really a much more entrepreneurial path.
Yeah.
And so that felt very natural. And once I started dipping my feet into that area, that's when I really things opened up, because it's not just being a craftsperson, it's actually you can create and collaborate and innovate. And so that's really when things lifted off for me.
So it's quite interesting when you mentioned the entrepreneurial side. Did you know you were going to get to producing and then start dabbling in writing and directing? Was that always the vision, or were you more in the moment in the early days?
Look, I actually moved into producing to create work for myself as an actor. Wow. So that was my initial, I was still just fixated on becoming the next Robert De Niro, you know what I mean? It was, and in the end, I only ever produced one thing that I really acted in, which was my first feature film back in, I think, 2007, which my best friend and we raised $180,000 of private money to go and make a movie. Yeah. And I was one of the support cast in that. But apart from that, I sort of let go of the acting thing. I still jam as an actor, but it was once I moved into producing and I just felt so hyperextended, so challenged, because I was a high school dropout, no formal education, and suddenly I'm dealing with all these lawyers and financiers, and I was out of my depth, and I kind of
You like that?
Yeah, I was and I got screwed over on that first project and a couple of deals, and I just went never again, So that was what made me become a student of the game. And now, I very much consider myself a bush lawyer. I'm happy to sit in the room with any entertainment lawyer and
Yeah.
go toe to toe. When it comes down to the legalese, I'll still want expert opinion, but I know my way around business affairs, and that all stems back to that first project, dire failure.
Yeah, the lesson.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah, I similar experience definitely in my early negotiations, in a bit of naivete and idealism of like it'll be all right, and to give almost to give too much, and then you kind of give away a bit too much of yourself. You know?
And the other thing that's interesting when I reflect back on that deal as well is there was definitely naivety, and there was naivety around like the value of what I was selling. Like, it was a cool little project, but it was my everything. It was my universe. So like, I just admit that like the blue sky was all I could see in terms of outcome for that. So I felt even more ripped off than in retrospect maybe I was,
Yeah, that. Well, that's hindsight
Yeah,
for you.
yeah, exactly.
But I think that's quite an interesting place to dig into. Like, was there some sort of barrier for you that you didn't know that you had around kind of like your worth when going and pitching? Because in the sales, you're becoming you're essentially like a founder or a CEO as soon as you get into the game of basically producing and raising capital and trying to build this thing, this business off of this creation.
Yeah, there's a very much a parallel there to developer. So like, having now dabbled a little bit into property development, like it's a very like model,
Yeah.
where like you come up with a property that you develop enough, and then you need to sell a certain amount of units before you can trigger the rest of the financing.
Yeah.
Then you make it, and then you sell the rest, and hopefully you profit. So a very like model. But my blockage back then, I think, as to per the naivety that we're talking about, was not so much around the value of what I had, because I think I had I was overvaluing what I had.
Oh, okay.
My blockage back then was my value as a storyteller. And so when you were talking about my natural evolution to go from producer to writer director, I didn't really value my ability to move into that field. Whereas in hindsight, I think actually that's really the natural home for me. So over my career, I've evolved into that. But the cool thing is, taking this pathway that I've taken, now as a director, as a storyteller, I have all of this business knowledge that I learned from being a producer. So it's a pretty cool and unique combo.
And you started on the tools.
Yeah.
In a sense as well. So you kind of have the unicorn effect. There's like often that thing in entrepreneurship where they talk about what, the skills you bring as a founder, as someone that co-founds something. And, it's great to have someone technical, great to have someone that can go and sell it. Maybe the compliance depends on the industry, but then there's certain people, if you get someone that can build it or knows enough about the technology and can sell it, that's like the dream.
That's it, man. We call it a 360-degree producer, and that's what I bring. So I bring a creative skill set and a business skill set, whereas most producers that come through, they either graduate from finance and law. There's a lot of lot of lawyers who are producers.
Yeah.
A lot of accountants. Or there are like actor converts, but who never really did, or writer converts, director converts into producing, but they never really did the time on the business affairs tools to bring that side.
Yeah, okay. How is it like trying to start your own thing in New Zealand, dealing in a global sense?
Highly difficult. Yeah, very, very challenging. So when I founded so we went and made that crazy movie in 2007, and we'd read this book by the Coen brothers who said that they basically called dentists and doctors and pitched them their movie idea and asked for money. So we did that. And we called our friends and family, and we just like went hundies, man. I think we were in our early 20s.
Yeah.
We didn't make a short film, which is like the classic trajectory. We just went straight to making a movie, and my buddy had a script, and I was like, yo, I'll produce. And I'd done some crew work, and I knew a little bit. Anyway, we did that mad journey and we raised, as I say, 180,000, made the movie. It was good. It had like launched at the Civic, sold it out, played some festivals around the world, got a theatrical release in New Zealand, gave us the bug, and it put us on the map. And that's the thing I'm real proud of, because we didn't wait for someone to give us a handout. It was our calling card.
Yeah.
Then we founded Four Nights Film in 2010. And I actually went to the founder of iHug back in the day, Tim Wood, who was a friend of mine, and his wife at the time, Sasha Wood. And they had sold iHug. They had capital that invested in the first movie that we made, lost their money, but loved what we were doing, wanted to be a part of the trajectory. So they gave us a little bit of startup money for Four Nights Film, took a shareholding. And then our first film that we developed and produced. And so I put myself on minimum wage with that startup money.
Yeah.
And my business partner, James Napier Robertson, was on minimum wage, and we ran very frugal. We didn't have any dependents, no family, anything like that. And we developed a film called The Dark Horse, which it took quite a few years to get it into production. But we ended up making that, and that was like a killer experience for us. Really rewarding creatively, business-wise, it's been profitable. It was just like the dream experience. Very, very difficult.
Yeah.
And that minimum wage whittled down to less than that. There was like no money in it for us up front.
That's right.
But that's what set the company up.
Okay, so it was that success. That was it's very similar to game development, isn't it? Movies, right? And I guess that's why there is actually quite a strong crossover in the publishing game and the producing game of film and TV and actually gaming, right? Because actually it's a similar trajectory. You got to produce it, you got to build this thing, this experience, and then you got to sell it. And you've got to go through the whole life cycle of it, and it's quite similar. It
is. It's still like an anomaly to me, like how sort of old school our game remained, like the film and television market remains in terms of territories.
Yeah,
because we still like carve up distribution rights amongst all the territories, and then like a sales agent puts a value to each of those territories, and I'm just like, it blows me away that it still operates like that, because in lots of ways it's a global market, but that model is still holding on.
Yeah, there's a lot of control from certain institutional and individual influences.
Exactly.
That kind of keep the game old school still.
Yes, exactly. And so there's the big streamers, which are global, but even they now will quite often carve up. They're doing less and less global deals, and like they'll acquire just selected territories based on data, So this is now where our sector is, not to sort of deviate too much from the line you're on, but like that's where our game is changing so much, is it's so much more data-led. Like when I was coming out of the days of The Dark Horse, you would have these mastermind acquisitions people who literally were hired for their taste. So your taste, your ability to curate had this very high value. Whereas now with data coming in, the audience takes away or lessens the value of curation.
Yeah, there's less unknown, right? It's kind of like in the pay-per-view game for like the UFC. They have so much data on what's working and what's going to work and how it's going to happen. Like they know before the fact. There's less unknown, so it relates a bit of content there.
Except then to argue with myself, or to confound that.
Yeah.
Is like, there's no baby reindeer based on data. There's no adolescence. There's no breakout wild card. You can't program for that until that wild card exists. So that's the fun bit.
Well, that's the mimetic nature of content, isn't it?
Yes.
It's the unknown resonance between the audience and the piece of art that basically, I think, attaches itself to what's currently being felt in the world.
Yeah, the zeitgeist.
Yeah,
that way.
And that's where you can't control that, because you don't know. You can't you can maybe sometimes have an idea, but it's that mimetic behavior behind that kind of node effect of going from one person to another, and an idea or a thought or a piece of content permeating through the internet and through the kind of
100%. And that's like the boldness. That's the magic we're all chasing. Like, that's what keeps us in it, I think, is like, is chasing that one.
yeah, bad.
Yeah.
And you kind of had a taste of it. Do people say it's addictive?
Highly addictive, because like the satisfaction, I think, when you build something up from nothing, and you know about this in the business that you've done, like, but when you build something out of nothing and out of just an idea, and that becomes something tangible, and successful, that's a highly rewarding feeling,
And it's nice that it's delayed, like I think in like what you're doing, like, and the same with kind of business building, is it's like every overnight success at least is 2 years. But in the case of business, and even in some production, right, it's 10 years.
Yeah. 100%, man. We've got a film that I'm directing at the moment has just had this massive surge of momentum out of nowhere. It's been on our slate for 12 years, Dawn. It's just, but exactly what you're describing, this zeitgeist. It's like a goofy, broad sports comedy.
Yeah.
And over the last few years, the sort of socio-political environment those films have not been being made. There's been nervousness around comedy and how far it can push. And now there's this rebellious swing in terms of audiences. I feel like really want to laugh at goofy, outrageous stuff again. And so there's like, now suddenly we pull that script off our slate, give it a bit of a redux for now.
Yeah.
And it's like the audience want it now. And so, that's interesting too.
Yeah.
It's like, definitely no overnight successes. Like, there's no such thing in our business. It is such a grind. Like, one of the qualities that's most important in my business is just like determination, tenacity, like it's self-motivation, is getting up every day and just grinding when like you're just getting no's, no after no after no. Especially now, it's a very contracted climate. Like the television, the series market for us is just majorly contracted.
Yeah.
There are still opportunities. We're still like managing to thrive, but yes, I would say we're working twice as hard.
Right. So you're working twice as hard, but getting roughly the same results. And then you're now aware that you have to kind of think about what's next in a sense. And I guess there's that dynamic between kind of creating a piece of art that takes 12 years and now this kind of emergence of content now, content ready, content released.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting dynamic for you to kind of balance, because that's kind of where the mimetic trend is towards. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to stay there either.
No, exactly. There's like, it's fascinating, that stuff of where is it all going and where is our place in that? And, my true analysis of our market is that the way that we've been doing it is like we're in a sunset industry, like in that sort of that way of 100, film crew of 50 to 100 people going out on a physical location and, with 3 cameras and us all doing that in such an analog way. And, or even if I apply it to the business affairs closing period where, I lead these closing calls with all of my different financiers and there might be 20 people and 10 lawyers all on a call trying to sort all of that. Like, if you look at any of these stages of the filmmaking process, it's actually quite inefficient.
Yeah.
So now with technology and AI and automation and all of these solutions, we're just going to start seeing a more and more efficient way of doing these things. And so how I would like to do it, is somewhere between like the way we're doing it now in a more efficient way, because I'm a romantic. Like, there's parts of my art that I love and I wouldn't want to lose.
The habit of it, the kind of the ritual of doing a part of the process that may not need to be there, but makes you feel something.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a romantic part of me that enjoys some of those processes, but I can take that hat off and put on my analytical hat and look at it and go, where do I think it's going? And I have a reasonable idea, have a view on that. It's more like with any of this stuff, I think we could come to a consensus without too much debate about where it's going to end up. The question is always, how long will it take to get there, right? Like with technology and with the arc of that.
Yeah, and how will people feel about it? And that often doesn't necessarily match. Some like everyone's quite positive about AI today, but in a year, people could be quite negative about it, but the technology would have still moved. It would have still moved on and evolved and developed and maybe had more adoption, even though everyone is feeling more pessimistic about it.
Exactly.
That could be and that's most likely, and that's the same with content and distribution. I mean, what we're seeing in business is that people want to deal with, it seems to me, and I think it's the same with content, but it seems to me like people want to buy and consume products that they have an affinity for now more than ever. Like that creates a feeling of belonging. And I think that the incumbents aren't built to actually deliver that. And I think it's the same with kind of content creation in a way where you can imagine, like, I can imagine our company being worth, in excess of $1 billion with less than 15 staff. Like, I can see that, right? And yeah, okay, we might have 40 shareholders total. But it's the same with content, right? Like the Mr. Beast is an example, Joe Rogan is an example of that kind of leveraged activity that we're getting from kind of technology and this kind of global distribution pathway.
Well, a sense of belonging is a huge one, man. Like in this climate, and it's classic like counterculture to, or like a counter move to the technological uprising is then this yearning to feel a sense of belonging. And like, so counterculture in that sense, in the content sense, is always really going to be the space that I'm more interested in. So, when things are becoming less and less human in terms of human interaction, human connection, it's the absolute apex of human behavior, human interaction where I want to be playing. Yeah. So even if that becomes a more niche space as all of this evolves, that still just has to be where I operate because it's my integrity. Like that's the only space I can be super motivated in. And I still feel like there's always going to be an audience for that. Yeah. But a sense of belonging, definitely. And that's what I'm talking about in terms of these larger zeitgeist socio-political movements is, that's where we can see opportunities to tap in with our content to give a particular community a sense of belonging,
Yeah, and distribute a message and capture a point in time quite nicely. And I think there's so many songs you can think of, right, where that it has that moment. Like that's what you're trying to chase is that connection to how people feel and then manifesting it in a piece of content that actually kind of everyone goes, yeah, it's that right now. I didn't know what it was. It's a feeling, but that's what it is.
Yeah, exactly. And often, not always, but often that's about contributing something new to the discourse. Like that's where something like Baby Reindeer, for example, was really tapping into something like, if you think about how radical that storytelling is, like, and how brave and bold that is, that like just smashes down a whole sense of taboo. Like you ask 99 out of 100 buyers before Baby Reindeer whether they buy that show, and they go, no, we can't buy that kind of stuff. Whereas post Baby Reindeer, you pitch anything that's in that space, and maybe there's another 10 who would go, yeah, all right, we'll
have a go at it. You're talking about that from a funding perspective.
But and so
that's like the fast follow, right, of what worked. But that's the other thing is like the FOMO aspect of any sort of.
Definitely. And that's where like strengthening your brand so that people have enough faith in your ability to actually be a trailblazer.
Yeah, to see where the puck's going.
Yeah, because like they're not going to take that punt on a first timer. So all of this like building up that you do of the value of your brand personally, like my brand as a storyteller, Tavake, my company, Four Nights Film, all of these things contribute to them when we take the real bold one, them taking that punt, you know? So it might be that like our most radical projects on our slate have to sit there until we're like at our peak powers because people are not ready to take a risk. It's like when you hear about a director who's had a massive hit and then literally the studios come in and go, what do you want to do next? And they go, well, actually, I want to do this crazy, like niche flipping, genre bending house, you know, and they go, all right, well, because you're who you are, we'll back that, you know?
Yep. Yeah, that's right. Once you got the pedigree, then it's same as startups. Once you have an exit, like you get to choose what you do next.
Yep.
And if you work at one of those larger companies and you get the right kind of narrative about who you are in the space, it gives you a lot of...
Well, that's where as well, like similar to a startup as well, that's where the property becomes pivotal. Like if we talk about that parallel to a property developer again, the site is crucial. So that's like the IP. What is the story? Does it come with an inbuilt audience? You know, this is why people love like graphic novels, you know, underlying works, things like that. But then what are the sexy, exciting pieces that we can plug into that property to make it even more attractive? So in our case, that's cast. You know, who's the big actor?
Yeah.
And so often my strategy will be, I'll be writing a piece that I know, like when I write the scene, I go, I know this actor is going to love reading this monologue. Like this dialogue here is right up their alley. They're going to love playing this character because it's super complex. So coming from an acting background, I know how to develop something that's what we call like actor bait, you know? And once I get a big actor, still now that is the biggest...
The actor first before...
and I do as an independent producer. If I get the actor and the director, those pieces, that is massive risk mitigation for then the financier.
Right.
Because the financier goes, if this actor in it, even more than the script, more than anything, the cast still have the biggest effect on revaluing a piece, almost to like, in my opinion, a disproportionate level.
Yeah.
But that is still how our industry works.
Same with team and stuff like that, right? It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like more than the idea, you know, and it's a conservative, it's an extremely high risk industry. Ours is like right up there, like in terms of risk.
Yeah.
But those things, you know, that's where investors are oddly kind of conservative and distributors and stuff. Yeah, they look at the cast and then they look at past projects that their actors done and they comp that. And that combined with the story genre target audience, they value your project. And then that's how you build it up.
Oh, it does, yeah. So would you say that your kind of route to funding now has gone more institutionalized as you've kind of developed?
Quite diverse.
There's still a lot of independent.
Definitely. I mean, to be honest, man, like we're hugely supported by the New Zealand government still. Like the rebates, the incentives that are in place for our industry, like we're so lucky to have those to trade with internationally. Don't get me wrong, like from the data that I understand, those rebates still have a net positive for the New Zealand economy. So it's not, well, there are two strands. There's like an art strand, which is from the Ministry of Arts, Culture and Heritage.
Yeah.
That's not like an economy geared stream.
Yeah.
So I access that stream for certain projects.
Yeah.
And then we have two pots of tax rebate. And they are big in terms of stimulating and attracting international production.
Yeah.
So I work in both of those, and those become real like cornerstones of my finance plan. Then I go and get foreign money bring foreign money in.
And is that often individuals or is that brokered?
It's usually it's either through this pre-sale model where I'll sell off individual territories,
Yeah.
or it's an advance against the international value,
Right.
or it's a studio. So for example, the Madam series that I produced and put together, which was on TB3 here in New Zealand, and we've just brokered a big multi-territory sale to a streamer offshore. That was financed with a company called Fifth Season, who actually are a big owner that connected to Endeavour.
Oh, yeah.
So they were a big financier of Madam, combined with some New Zealand funding and then some Australian funding as well.
Yeah. And how do they get the ROI? Are they getting like how's it work? Is that
That one, we had only pre-sold New Zealand, so the rest of the world was available for them to sell. So they provided an advance against the remaining territories.
Right.
And then since then, they sold to Channel 9 in Australia for a really great deal. And then they've just closed this streamer deal.
Right.
And there's still more territories available. But prior to that, the show won a bunch of awards internationally to like build up its value again. It stars Rachel Griffiths, who's an Oscar nominee, Golden Globe winner, and Martin Henderson, the New Zealand actor. So it's quite a like classy package.
Yeah.
Then the story is set within this legalized sex work industry here in New Zealand. So it's like an interesting zeitgeisty international topic.
Yeah.
But it has enough New Zealand elements to be of New Zealand cultural relevance. So it's kind of like right in this sweet elliptical sphere for us as a company to produce. And those are more unique and
So do you find that you like, okay, how do I just keep the lights on and use New Zealand as an ability to kind of deliver the product, and then the kind of margin and the kind of future success of the asset is then like, how do you kind of get that wider distribution?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. If there's a way that we can put a show together with keeping as much upside as possible, then that's what we'll do. But there are multiple strands to our company. Like, so sometimes one strand of our company will provide more just services where international productions will come in. They're more developed. We'll work with them, help make the show.
That's like a subcontractor though.
In a way, and it's good to have that diversify our slate
And your revenue.
Yeah, because that is like
Low
risk, lower upside, more just a fee-based model.
Yeah.
So we'll have that, and then we have our ones that we develop internally from the ground up, and we will usually put a lot of sweat equity into those and real capital.
Yeah.
So those are the ones that you get deeply invested in, because 5 years deep, you got to make those decisions as well to go, I can't work on everything. Maybe now's the time to let go of this project.
Yeah, right.
And we might have invested 6 figures in 5 years of work in it, that's like, or at least put it on the slate, on the back burner, and come back to it when it's moment. But yeah, so we'll have those different strands. And then the third strand for us that I'm really interested in now, and I'd love to talk with you more about as well, like ongoing, is a more innovative strand. So more in the vein of, as this transition phase happens, more with AI having an increasing role to play in the screen sector, how can our company innovate and monetize that transition?
Yeah.
And I think like we're in a really unique position at the moment and have some pretty cool ideas of like using our expertise, and we're truly experts in the field now, combined with our sort of willingness to innovate, but also our ownership as independence of the entire pipeline of a project, to really maximize opportunities right in this window of time now, because it's just such a unique opportunity. So yeah, that's what I'm really interested in at the moment. And so that's like the third strand to our business. And it's just trying to make sure that we carve off the time to keep developing and innovating and not just getting sucked into running the business.
Yeah. And is that something that like, after the success you had, was your second film, actually, wasn't it?
Correct.
Did it just make operating the business easier, or have you still found that it's quite cyclical and you still got to grind for those lower upside opportunities to keep everything going, or have you guys found the groove?
Yes and no. One of the biggest problems with the independent film industry that exists for almost any independent film producer is every film, unless it's a sequel or a spin-off, is a new startup company.
Yeah, right.
So every single one, it's so inefficient. You have to start often with different stakeholders, you know, and so it's just by nature very inefficient. Like you have to go out and raise funds every single time. You have to go out, you have to develop your property, develop the idea.
So it's like an independent investment every time. Are there any
And you can get slate investments and things like that. And we've had like versions of that in the past. We're like, but whereas series is a great delineation from that, because series have the capacity to be returning. So just by nature, that can be a much better business model, because if it's returning, you've already built the IP, you've already got the partners, and it comes back. This is why the studios develop, even in the films, a universe where then they have a pre-existing universe and it's more efficient, you know.
like the Marvel universe?
Exactly. Like that's a great business model, you know.
Yeah.
So we've evolved in that way, and we've diversified our business. So we also work in the unscripted space now, like documentary space, and more the services, the incoming business, outgoing business, and then innovation. So we have a much more, I would say, from startup, I was doing one project at a time, just each project start to finish. And that was like ebbs and troughs.
Yeah.
And now I have to be across a lot more, and it's more diverse, and that just evens out the ebbs and troughs, makes it more sustainable. But I think, as I keep alluding to, I feel like there's a massive paradigm shift about to happen in our industry. And
well, the question is can you have content where everyone experiences different content? And does that become normal at some point?
100%. Yeah, I definitely think. You mean just like customizable, like it's your version of the story and what you want it to be?
Well, I don't know. Like, yeah, it's choosy.
100%.
But you can imagine having like interactive characters that have some sort of training on them using AI, for example, where actually you could, like, and Netflix have experimented with experiential content, right?
100%, man. Like that's the massive paradigm shift, I think, like coming down the pipe. And you know, there's a whole lot of questions that come up around that, even in terms of ethical questions, because it's also like, you know, it's like, you know, how the journalistic industry is losing a lot of power and influence right now, which is dangerous, because you end up sort of just consuming your own algorithm.
Yeah, that's right. You get in a loop.
Yeah, you get in a loop, and I think that's the same hazard if everyone's just creating the content that they want to see, because then you never discover the content that you didn't know you want to see. So I feel like there's a bunch of ethical like concerns there, and storytelling does play, and it's one of the things I'm most proud of, a really important role in terms of expanding audiences' consciousness. And I've always loved
giving people the story that they didn't even, the ending they didn't want.
Exactly, man. Like to provoke, right? Like, you know, to provoke and challenge and surprise, you know. And so I think, anyway, even in a fully, like, even in that space that you're describing, a full, like, kind of pick apart thing, I think, like, people also, when they are paralyzed by too much choice, they will still want a curator. So people will still go, I want the Taika Waititi version.
Yeah.
And so this is why I say to young filmmakers, for example, I say, in this climate and where it's going, one of the most valuable things for storytellers is actually build your own brand as a storyteller. And I haven't invested enough into that myself. I, in recent years, have sort of not really put myself out there. But I think, like, in this era of social media and personalities, Like if you're a personality, I think that has a greater value than it's had to date. And so by sharing your journey and who you are and finding ways to build your influence,
I totally agree with that.
then like people I think will still come to you even once the barriers break down in these storytelling versions that we're talking, like mechanism.
I mean, that's definitely what we're seeing again in the, especially, I mean, maybe not especially, but amplified perhaps just because it's a small market in New Zealand. But like clearly, if you're able to like go and demonstrate yourself in long form, and people get to know why you think the way you think and how that kind of happened, like it does create that kind of connection. And it's definitely that, again, that vibe. People are choosing to go with institutions that they can trust and that align to their values. And that's where the kind of incumbents of, and you look at that from a mainstream media perspective, or traditional financial institutions, or how election cycles were won, has just been changed.
Yep.
At least for now. But like, I don't know how you you take a path back to that old world, right? So we're definitely seeing that now. I think it kind of comes with these pitfalls as well. Like, I was talking to a friend over the weekend, and she was kind of discussing with me like this thing that her family were doing, and we're close. So, and her partner was already kind of upset at me because they knew how I would, my opinion, how the feedback I would give, and they knew that I would give feedback that they didn't want to hear. So they were so it's really interesting how and then so we had this conversation, and that kind of was that's how it came out. Like, look, I think what you want is friends that are going to just tell you what they think, like without worrying about trying to curate it to what you want to hear. Like
100%. Like, that is, I think that's really like a lot of the problems out there are coming from this like echo chamber, like algorithmic siloing, and it's like, as much as it might annoy me, I want to hear those other opinions. Like it's important for all of us. And it's important to like read what the opposition's got to say. And,
to understand, like inverting it, right? You take what is all the things that would make this go wrong, and then you can work out how to risk manage rather than being like, oh, it's all going to be fine, right? You start to go, oh, well, if someone wanted to destroy this thing that we're building, how would they do it?
Yeah, and like, I enjoy like that term, not even the devil's advocate is not fair, but like I've always enjoyed trying to understand the other perspective in a deal. It's one of the best ways to negotiate. It's like, what do they actually really want? And can I put myself in their shoes? Can I give them what they want whilst really going for what I want? Like that's a crucial thing of being ultimately like, in a more emotional way, it's like empathetic. But yeah, that to me is like, and as a storyteller in a creative sense, I have to understand every character in the screenplay. As soon as I make the villain a one-dimensional villain, he's boring or she's boring. Whereas if I understand them and humanize the villain, and so that's kind of how I see the world, and it's how I try and come at business too.
Yeah, I mean, I heard once someone say that a good deal is when both of you leave something on the table, feel like you've left something on the table.
Yeah.
That is a good deal. Like, and I actually find that there's a lot of people that I've experienced, especially over the last year, where you go, it's so unfortunate that you create these basically these binary outcomes where you're like, this is my line and this is my line going into it, and I'm not moving it, because it actually leaves no room for creativity and negotiation. And it's really good to be like, how can I leave something on the table as a gesture of good faith? Because actually what I have in life is I have, unfortunately, how I'm perceived. And we're perceived by like 1,000 people. So, there's this quote going around kind of, you're not one person, you're 1,000 people, because there are 1,000 people just meeting you and deciding who you are.
Yeah, fast.
And you don't live as one person. You're living as your one perception of yourself, but actually you're perceived by all these other people. So you're in a hoop. And this new world is exposing that even more because you're going to put yourself out there and but you're still going to not control how you're perceived.
Yeah, and it's only a version of yourself anyway.
You want to put out there.
Yeah, so I love it. I love it. I love it. That's great. Yeah, and I fully agree. Like, goodwill and that, I've done a lot of crazy deals over the years. And yeah, that element of goodwill is pivotal. And like what I think is undervalued at times is like I'm just coming to the end of a massive deal at the moment. And like, one of the things that's been super tough is like we've got stuck in doing the deal before we even got to know each other that well. And it's like, it's just killing the vibe of like the actual project. And it's like everyone's got a bit grabby and defensive. And it's like, suddenly it's like now the intangible of like like how do we all feel when we emerge from the deal to actually recommence the project is something that I think is undervalued.
Really. Well, it's like how motivated are people going to be after certain things happen, and how do you manage that? How do you manage that at the end of the day? Like most things are perception. Like we just had this event, this fintech expo thing, and there were like 20 startups, maybe fintech startups there, and we did a spin to win, and we did this really creative thing where we were giving away Bitcoin and stocks and like memberships to our kind of product. And over 4 hours, we got 92 registrations. We were signing people up, one person up every 2.6 minutes. It was so cool. I don't know. I lost my train of thought of where I was going with that, but like I guess it's the perception, the way we did it, the professionalism, the execution. Everyone all of a sudden thought we were like well funded. We're perceived in market as well funded, but like we are frugal AF. And we are not super well funded. Like, founding team have put in over 50% of their capital.
Yeah.
And we've raised a fraction of what our competitors have raised. And we were next to a company that's worth, $100 million today. And, we had that demand because we were creative and scrappy. And there was even talks before the event of, oh, it's unfair what you guys have done because you actually have potentially broken the rules because you're doing something too cool. But we actually spent $0 on this. We literally begged and borrowed like everything.
I love that. And that's what I'm talking about in my game. That's where like, once I've got shiny pieces, like, my skateboarding project that we're cooking up at the moment, it's a very specific, very risky, very bold, creative version of a story, like groundbreaking in the ways it's trying to do it. It's like mixed media. It's like a skate video meets like a dark drama with hilarious like skater comedy mashed in there. It's such a unique telling that like I need to present this story and this project in an exciting way. We went out, we got Tony Hawk on board as an executive producer to present the project. We got Steve-O from Jacka.
Nice.
We like went out with a really smoking press release and we made off the back of that, we made the hot list of like the Cannes titles to watch. All of this now all of that is just a story. Like none of those guys are getting paid at the beginning. There's no cost to that. That's us hustling, as you say, being scrappy. How do we make the perception of this project that it's the hottest project on earth? And well, the trade magazines decided that it was in the top 10 at least.
Yeah.
And so it's the same kind of thing. Like as a business person, like you have to be mindful of that and going like, how do we get super creative to get some spark to then catch to a fire? Because it's like, for me, my job as a producer, I say, I've got to get the spark. And then once I've got the spark, I've got to go. It's like momentum. I've got to like fuel it. I've got to get the gas tank, pour the gas on it, and like get out of my way while I'm trying to like arson the whole, because it's just got to burn. And it's like, momentum is super important. Everything, and it's like, and this is where I get frustrated with partners is when like, they start to operate from a fear-based thing and they put the brakes on and like, yes, we don't want to like agree to anything stupid, but at the same time, if you like nickel and dime on this, you're killing the fire. You're literally like letting it burn out. And so that is my superpower in a way in business is I think I can get a spark and then like, provided no one's out with their extinguishers, just like get the fire burning, you know?
Yeah, man, that's awesome. So, like, what does success look like for you now in 5 years? Like, if we were to go and fast forward 5 years from now, like, is life the same? Are you in that state that you want to be, or are there's change that you want to see? And
Yeah, success to me is multi-pronged, to be honest, because like there's different strands to it.
really, I'm not talking just commercial.
Yeah, like definitely for me as a father, like spending more time with my kids is pivotal to me, and like really, I see a direct correlation between like the contribution that I can make as a dad and my happiness. So yeah, that's a big one for me, and I'm pretty good even now, like with how demanding my business is. It's just like my priorities are work, spending time with my kids, and my fitness. Like that's it. And if anything, like there might not be space for anything outside that is in a week.
It's tough. I feel I have a similar, very curated number of things that I can handle.
Yeah,
And to be fair, I'm disproportionately obsessed with like business building and markets that you're investing. Like there's a focus there, a very kind of hyper focused approach there. But then it's the same with my jiu-jitsu, same with, other kind of, and
we're probably a similar personality type in that way. But yeah, definitely just with the kids, it's like I realize, it's like, yeah, because for me, my meaning, comes from making a contribution. And I think for all of us that, it does, there has to be meaning. And so sometimes my work has that meaning through the projects that are picked up, but sometimes it like skews more to be just on the business and it's more like a job. And that sort of, the rhythm of that is not entirely in my control because like the decision makers in a way who like green light projects or whatever, like there's like a ratio of like how meaningful the projects on my slate are to me. So my meaning in other parts of my life is a big part of success to just balance that and not go like your identity, this is more like an existential thing, but your identity doesn't need to be entirely wrapped up in how successful your business is and what you do in any one moment. It can be a passion, but a healthy balance is between those two things. But success on the business side of it for me now is really to monetize my expertise in the next 5 years because I have become, it's not even a flex, it's just a fact, but I've become an expert in my field and I've seen internationally like minds at my level, like making a lot more money than I am. And so for me, this chapter up until now, it's very much been an artistic driver. And now it's becoming more of a balance between artistic and economic. And I can see an opportunity there and I feel like I can innovate in this pivotal juncture where our business is on the cusp of a paradigm shift and I want to go get it.
Yeah. And you want to go get it because you want to also prove to your kids that it's possible, right? Hard things.
100%. And I think I think there's, it's not mutually exclusive. I think like I can also help navigate like the ethics of that and make a contribution in that way. But yeah, a big thing as well is as that paradigm shift goes forward and I don't actually know where that's going to end up, I need some security because suddenly the value of what I've been trading on may have a different value in 10 years.
Totally.
So it's also about setting my family up like in all
structuring and making sure that they're going to be okay and they got all the resources they need.
Exactly.
Because and it's funny, like around getting your identity tied up in what you do, like your kid, like whatever you do is not going to look at you the same way as your kids do when you pick them up from school.
Oh, big time, man.
It's crazy.
No, you can't beat it. And it's just like, talk about a way to snap you into the present moment. Yeah. Like, I just love that.
I know you take, I don't know. I feel like I often take it for granted, we're like so tied up in, you guys need to understand what I'm building to you are just like like, I don't know, unapologetically just happy and present.
Yeah.
And like when you're pushing through these things, you're trying to build something big and you get very hyper focused on what you're doing. You almost feel like you are in a movie, and in a movie like Vikings has a typical arc, hero's journey that gets super hard and dark in that like late trimester, and it's like, how do you kind of remain the kind of
Grounded in that season? Because it's like, the reality is we are probably not like in a life or death
no
situation, but your body doesn't know the difference. Like biochemically, like it feels to us like it's a fight or flight, like thing. The other one is like the butterfly, like and the chrysalis in the final stages. And like I heard something of like it contorts its like organs or like it does some crazy stuff in order to bust out, and then like in that time, it's like the feeling is amazing. And that's what we're chasing all the time. But I think even in that most stressful thing, whatever we can do to just go, man, it's not life or death. Like it's going to be all good. And, I certainly don't have any problems with generating hunger, desire, motivation. So for me, it's about taking the edge off.
yeah
That, it's not about needing that.
producers, entrepreneurs, people like artists, really, you're living in the future because you're like, there's a creative illusion. You're speculating on what the future looks like or what future you can create.
Yeah.
And that's dangerous because then you're living in a world that doesn't exist.
Now, like that is it, man. Like that is it. So whatever we can do at least once or twice a day, even for 20 minutes, half an hour, if that's playing with the kids, if that's meditating, if that's your jits, like whatever those things are, you have to get back into the present somehow. Otherwise, it's an absolute, really a waste of time and waste of life. Yeah. So like, and I'm not great at that. So success in this next 5 years is just slightly, it's small. All you're doing is making fine tuning things. A certain amount of it is your personality. You're not going to have a personality transplant.
Like,
You're just going to make tweaks and adjustments to strive for more happiness and more presence.
yeah. But to land then, like the world's evolving. I think we're both on a journey of trying to also get the message out that you can create something bigger than yourself as well. And with that in mind, in your industry, how can someone go and do that? How can an individual high agency human go and be like, you know what? It is a bit uncertain, but I'm going to go and create, and then I'm going to build up such skills that I could then have the trajectory that you feel that you're on, where you're like, now I'm going to yield all the seeds really I've sown in the past decades.
Specifically in the screen industry, if I was a young person wanting to enter that game, what I wouldn't do is I wouldn't go to film school because it's so quickly becoming an outdated like pathway. What I would do is I would combine the traditional storytelling hero's journey that you're talking about, learning about the mythical archetypes of storytelling and actually knowing that as an expert, because those things are timeless. And we're talking about, ultimately, I think about storytellers, you're trading in emotions. So understand what are the triggers for different emotions. Like that gives you a superpower that AI doesn't yet understand the nuance of. Understand human beings. Yeah. If you want to study something at university, go and study sociology, history, psychology, all those things that give you a better understanding, and go and hang out with some people.
Oh, and then practice there. Like,
yeah, it's the theory. Like, go and live your life. Like, have some failures, like have some relationships, have some stuff to inspire you to want to tell a story. And then combine that with, on the other side, really understanding the new technology. So you need both to be able to move in this new landscape, not one or the other. If you're just a tech nerd, like you're not going to know how to resonate with humans emotionally.
And that edge of being able to create technology is now the bar is now being lowered.
It's dramatically in that way too. Exactly. So still think the value is still in being a human who understands other humans in my field. But yeah, forget about like the making pathway of like, this is how to operate a camera or edit and all of that, because that stuff's just going to be toast by the time you graduate.
Awesome, mate. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I've enjoyed it thoroughly.
Yeah, me and you, man. Appreciate you having me on, and great to get to know you.
Awesome, man.